Please take note of all the exits around the room and now join me as we reaffirm our fealty to the American flag.
Get it off somewhere. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to first just note that one of our vice chairs, Ms. Dexter, is not here tonight. She's feeling under the weather, and we wish her a speedy recovery. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for Nichols Oxygen Service. This is a request for approval of site plan. There's a new owner, and there's still a couple of items that were undone, as we mentioned at the last meeting. May I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Would anyone from the public like to speak about this application? Any comments from consultants or the board?
No.
There being none, may I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a resolution, not a revolution, sorry, prepared.
Hope not.
Mr. Oliver.
Resolution to grant a one-year extension of time to complete construction, Nichols Oxygen Service, resolution number 2022-48. Whereas, now therefore be resolved that pursuant to section 108-9.6B of the Town Code, the Planning Board hereby grants the applicant a one-year extension of time in which to complete substantial construction of the project to and including October 21st, 2023.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Camp Victory Lake. This is a master plan along with Phase 1, which is a sanctuary or a large church, or I should say a multi-purpose religious structure, a church and sanctuary. May I get a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Would anyone from the public like to speak about this application? Any comments from consultants or the board? We're still waiting on some information, basically. So I believe that they're still working through traffic impacts with the Department of Public Works.
Yep.
Cynthia, do you know when they ask us to?
I did not hear back from him on that.
I didn't see anything either, so let's just go ahead and extend it to November 16th. We'll give them more time. Make a motion to adjourn this public hearing to November 16th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the big item tonight, Bellafield Phase 2 Final Development Plan and Subdivision. This is the property that's across from the Culinary Institute. It's a 339-acre parcel. This has been reviewed since I was up on, when I was first appointed 17 years ago. It went moribund for a bit because of the economy. Been picked back up. Last year, right around December, this board gave amended secret findings and a recommendation for adoption of a concept plan. The then town board adopted it. I think it's one of their last action items of the year. This represents from going from a top-down view. This will be going vertical. For those of us or those who live here and who watch, you've already seen the hotel go vertical, which is exciting. But wait until you see this. Let me turn it over to the applicants. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Leibold with KRC Planning.
Jennifer Van Tile from Cuddy and Fader.
Yeah, and Larry Boudreau with Belfield. Thank you for having us back. We're very excited to be here. You know, as you know, we've been working on this quite a while. Just to give you an update, the hotel is on the 3rd floor, so we poured half of it, getting ready to pour the second half. And we mobilized back on site to get the wastewater treatment plant in the ground. So we're digging the holes today, tomorrow, this week, and the first set of tanks will be coming in 2 weeks, so early November.
Congratulations.
Yes, we're very excited about that. Thank you for all the support from the board and the town to get us where we are today. This PowerPoint that we put together, it's about 50 slides. So the bulk of it will be on the architecture. There's, the first part of it, which I will take, is the site plan stuff. A lot of this was presented at the October, I'm just going to get the right name, 28th meeting, we went back and did quite a bit of more work on it. The key that I want everybody to know is that we ended up doing multiple offline meetings, including with the planning board. We met with Pete and Tad. We met with the fire chief. Kelly met with the post office to get that all worked out. And then yesterday we had a meeting with what I'm calling the landscape committee. So we're working real hard on finalizing it and getting everything all pulled together. And it has been a great collaborative working experience for all of us. So if you go through, this is all in the package. This is the Hart-Howerton Concept Master Plan, which was approved last December, December 20th. And boy, does time fly. We're moving up to that almost a year later. What the next slide is, it shows again, this was in the package a couple of months back, but this shows the Phase 2 overlaid on the Hart-Howerton Concept Master Plan, so you can sense the fit, the overall fit in it. Working with the DOT driveways, which are in place. We're currently working with them to finalize our bond to get the bond returned, so it's essentially done. Go to the next one.
Before you go on, Larry, on the last slide, this slide I should say, this is still showing the covered area of parking before the parking garage, and I believe that's been eliminated. You can't see it here, but I can see it on my side. There's a little line here. I believe those were covered parking stalls that were facing Route 9.
Well, what that is that's the Hart-Howerton drawing pulling up, right? So we did an overlay.
I know, but weren't there little coverings for some parking stalls there?
The what now?
Weren't the parking stalls that were facing Route 9 that are in front of the parking deck, weren't those covered at one point?
They will be covered when we do the next phase.
Oh, so that covering's been dropped now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the parking doesn't go all the way to the west. It just has just a one aisle there.
Thank you.
It will go in. Okay, this shows again what's under construction. So the hotel, of course, which is in the right of the screen there. All the utilities that go north to the wastewater treatment plant are all in. The pump station is in. As soon as we get power, we'll fire it up. And again, the contractors mobilized for the wastewater treatment plant. The project, again, fairly, just a lot of things going on the cover sheet. When you review it, we did detail out, of course, the program. This shows the village neighborhood, 356 residential units. In this phase, it's 177,000 square feet of non-residential. And then when you add in the hotel, which is under construction, then we put that all together, and we did the ratio analysis, which is down on the bottom. And the resi square footage is less than 60%, a tad less. And the commercial is a tad higher than 40%, so we're compliant. In the documents that we submitted, we're referring you to this sheet here because this Excel spreadsheet really kind of defines the whole program. It gets pretty detailed. On the left are the building numbers, and
We can't read this.
Well, this sheet is in your full
I know,
size
that's what I
set.
said when you
Yeah,
said
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
Even
Yes.
if someone that was up from the public, they wouldn't be able to read
Is
this
it blown up
either.
on the second page?
Okay, flip to the second page,
Yeah,
and
it's-
then
it's
there it is.
Blown up on the
Blown up.
next page.
Right.
Very good.
Right, so this, okay, so again, the way the phase is done, we numbered all the buildings, 1 through, what's the bottom number there?
There are 2,400.
2,400?
Yeah, so it's
Let me see that.
20,
Yep,
22 to 23.
yep, 2,400. So We identify the use on the left. The square footage for the resi is the next column. The square footage for the retail, so it really tracks it pretty well. Then as you move to the right, it defines the land use per level. That's what the 1, 2, 3, 4 is. And then over to the further right, it starts to define building height, bulk requirements, whether we're compliant or not. And on buildings 100 through 600, we will need a slight variation from that which was approved, and it's identified in this chart. So very helpful to review. Just this demonstrates that we worked real hard on making sure we hit all the parking, not only to this board, but also to our tenants that specifically want to know in their leases, where do we park? And one thing they do not want is not enough parking, obviously, because they don't want to be cannibalized, other tenants taking their parking. So we had to work through, not only on the resi side, but the commercial side, and assign parking for this phase build out, and also to show that we are in fact over our demand requirement. This right here shows the utilities, of course, all the utilities, the water, sewer, drainage is all laid out. We're working with Central Hudson. As you know, all the power is underground. And I just got back from them last week, the CAD drawing showing how they will route all their primary power, and then we jump on with the low voltage with that. So. Of course, they want to know where all the EV charging stations are, so we're all coordinated on that. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you, Larry. Again, I just want to echo my predominant section of this presentation really focuses on the architecture and the design of the individual buildings. But I just want to take a minute and say again, thank you to the subcommittees that have been working with us. And I think that, in creating these meetings, we've really improved the architecture of the project. I know there was a lot of time that was spent not only at the meetings, but preparing. So we're grateful for that.
I want to give a shout out then to the two board members to my left and Rob, because they were the two who took the lead on this. That's not at the expense of anybody else.
Yes.
But I mean, I sat there and just was like, because I couldn't have done all of that either.
And the time that went in to come to the meeting, and to prepare. So we're definitely grateful for that. I mean, for the rest of the board members and the consultants, we got down to details that were really critical to this project, materials and roof styles, building connectors, signage, awnings, and so forth. So we're grateful for that. We know this is obviously a significant project, and kudos to this board. And, this administration, the last administration, on getting it to this point. I'm a Hyde Parkian. I think everyone knows that, so I'm just really proud to be sitting here to talk about this project. We have had tremendous technical guidance, not only from the board and its consultants, but also from the fire department, the postmaster, and this landscaping committee. So just kind of 2 minutes on those. We did have a wonderful meeting with the fire department. We did receive, I think, a comment letter just earlier today, so we'll address some of those.
It's preliminary, but I think it's pretty substantive, but it overall it's an improving. The only thing they really talked about that I hadn't thought of was 9/11 numbering on the signage, which of course somebody else would think about that besides me.
Yes.
But also the distance between the parking garage and two of the buildings that have residential. And I think those are mostly, at first they said, can they be split apart, which would not be easily for you guys to do.
Right.
So what they talked about was adding additional fire protection, I believe, along the way, and then also the width or the length of the elevator.
Yes, we owe them a response, so we had taken copious notes, and his letter really summarizes the outstanding issues, so we owe them a response back, and we'll continue to have that dialogue. But overall, I would say it was a very productive meeting, and I think we hit the mark with them on design and so forth. The postmaster, I met with the postmaster. She was kind enough to actually come to our office, and we laid out all of these drawings. And as indicated at the last planning board meeting, what we're doing is coming together and preparing a map for the post office, to review that shows where the post office drops will be. And once we have that approved, we'll incorporate that into this plan, so everyone can see. They're predominantly inside the common areas. And in addition, there'll be some other mail, depository locations, since everyone orders online today. And of course, the landscape committee, I think that you addressed.
That would be Tad and me who are on that committee, so.
So the design of this project, these are just some representative boards that we have compiled for you, not only to be able to look on the PowerPoint or the drawings in front of you, but also some big boards in case we want to get up and point to where we're reflecting on the buildings. But the design predominantly follows the Hart-Howerton design guidelines, so everything was taken from that as the basis. The architecture has evolved into a contemporary design. Most of the basis is, the root is agrarian, the theme and agrarian principles. As Larry had indicated, that this plan really comprehensively took into consideration the mix of retail and commercial, and how to affect infrastructure, as he had said, parking, but not only parking, water, sewer, storm, loading, and so forth. So it's really been very complementary of the true mixed-use design. We've applied diversity, or as I think we've themed, organized chaos with this group in the design, utilizing articulation, varying heights of the roof lines. As you'll see, I'll go through these. And what happens is that provides just a fundamentally different and unique look for that section of the building. We've utilized materials and design that really will stand the test of time. So the intent was to create not a trendy project, but one that really is going to be able to see the varying seasons, as this project evolves. And so a timeless design. We know that the landscaping is just as important as the architecture with this project, and we had indicated we'll have a more complete submission. But the landscaping isn't, in this situation, as you know, just a tool to provide vegetative awareness, or I think in the document they call it biophiliac. But it's rather really to connect the building and the uses to the nature, the trails, and the open spaces. So we do understand the importance of that. As we move forward and we talk about the buildings, we've taken careful consideration on entry door locations. So for example, the lower level retail areas obviously are more prominent, and the residential entrances to those spaces are really subservient to those. So we really have articulated those entries. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of the buildings, and what we've done is on this particular plan, just to orient everyone before I start, is we're going to go in numerical order, and so not necessarily in the order on the plan, if we were to go clockwise and so forth. And we've tried to provide a key to the building so you can see where we're talking about and you can get a sense. If you'd like, I could move the rendering closer to you, if that helps you see. Everyone is okay, you can see that?
We're looking at these.
Okay.
All of us have looked at the architecture, I think, pretty closely, but
Okay.
these are workable for right now. And I don't want to move this because the camera is set up so that the TV can
Perfect.
watch this
Okay.
nicely. So.
Perfect. So building one is residential. So this is a 3-story building, so it's 3 stories over parking. There are 44 units in this particular building. This is an L-shaped building, and so even though the architecture on the plan view, really looks like a flat building, this is an L-shaped building. All of the information that has been garnered and put on these different slides is really referenced and taken from that Excel spreadsheet that looked so small. I mean, that really is an important sheet, and that's why we wanted to include it in the package that you have. But if you question, as you go through this project, what's the purpose of any of these buildings, you can simply go back to that table and reference that table. Okay. So building 200 is just to the north. And so again, this is a residential building, 34 units, and this is, again, 3 stories over parking. And then we've identified, particular parking spaces that are available for this particular building.
Just to note, there's 1 space per unit in the garage, and then the balance of the parking is made up on the surface. at 1.5 per unit.
Okay, and then building 300, again, just moving north on the key map. And 300 and 400 are the two connected buildings. So building 300 is 37 units. And so again, this is 3-story. There was an edit on our drawing, so we corrected it. So this is 3 stories over parking. And then this particular structure has 56 parking spaces. Building 400 is just immediately to the north. Again, this is residential. This is 37 units. Okay, thank you. And this is 3 stories over parking, and this particular building provides 56 parking spaces. So if I'm going too fast or slow, just let me know. Again, continuing moving north, so we get to building 500, which again is an L-shaped building. So this is 3 stories over parking again, and this is 42 residential units with 63 parking spaces. Yep, go ahead, Bonnie.
Kelly, in the way that they're separated, building 300 and 400, the renderings, I guess the connector is kind of being shaded out. So is that the actual appearance, or no, that's just, you kind of put it in the background, it looks like, in terms of showing the elevation?
We'll talk about that. The rendering is,
Going back 300.
oh, okay. The rendering is really, the aerial view, the bird's eye view is a better representation. Let me just see if I can use my handy dandy little, so if you see in the back, no, it's like so far away from me. You know, these connectors for the building, we've set those connectors back
Right.
to the building, and we're really trying to, as I said, make them subservient to the main building. And when you put them on this flat elevation view, it's really hard to see where those connectors, you know, how they look in appearance.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the materials within the site plan and the architectural set actually call out what the design is. I think this is like, honestly, kudos. I think this is a phenomenal key to be able to figure out exactly what's proposed for every building. It's, like I said, just phenomenal. I just want to make sure that that connector materials and design, you know, got represented somewhere.
So maybe what we'll do on the next submission that we make is we can draw those out and maybe enhance those and show those so you can see what they are.
Maybe even like a little inset.
Inset.
Treated
Okay.
differently.
Perfect.
Kelly, can you go back to 300 for a second, please?
Yes.
Go back to where?
300.
300, just as an example, because when I'm looking at the print and I look at the screen, is that a green? Because I think the colors are different. I'm just
They
trying to-
do. Yeah, they definitely print different than what you see on the screen. So as far as the connector, it's hard for me to see what the
It's,
color is
It's
here, right?
well, it begins here, see? Right, this is all
That one building.
300, so it begins here. That's what she's saying, it's kind of chopped.
It's chopped off,
Right.
yep, okay. And, let me just bring this later.
That's what I thought. But
So I'm not sure if that's helpful, when we see the rendering, because this gets the buildings, for example, oh, here's 300. So if you see the connection between 300.
Yeah, it's right there. So it's right here, that connector, there. 300, 400, there it is, right there.
Right. And
And
so the
then-
materials are called out in the big site plan set then?
Yes,
Okay.
they are, yes.
Thank you.
And so we also have, that's actually maybe a better drawing, and then we have the between 400, or 500 and 600
Yeah.
as well.
3, 4 is that, 5, 6, here it is right here. 5 is that way going back.
So 5 is the L-shaped building, so on this elevation, you're seeing the short side of it, and then there's the connector over to 600. Okay, is it okay to keep
Yeah.
going? Okay, okay, so I think we were on So 600 is that little guy all the way to the north. So again, that's residential, same 3-story over the parking with 30 units. And so this, again, has the small connector over to 500, but it's a very narrow connector to the L-shaped building. Okay, now we're going to move further south again, so we're on the Main Street side. So we've got 700 and 800, are the connected buildings. So now we're into the mixed-use buildings, and so 700 has 22 dwelling units, and this is 2 stories over retail, with the first floor, obviously, the retail, and we've got that storefront type of articulation on the buildings, really to make prominent those retail entrances on these particular buildings.
So are those roll-up doors that are being shown?
This right here, yeah.
Yep.
All the storefronts are garage doors?
That was another question.
Are all the storefronts garage doors?
They're intended to vary, so when it goes up high, then you got the garage door. So that's what this is.
It's all garage doors that we're seeing, in other words.
Yeah, like all the retail facades.
All the
look
retail
like they
facades,
have
every
that
one has a garage door.
industrial
Like a functioning
style
garage door, or is that the
garage door.
design?
A pull-down, I guess it would be in case you have cafe tables and chairs, you would
Open it
put
up.
them
Yeah,
back in.
Or is that just a
Tom's-
security issue?
Yes.
Tom's intent is
Yes.
to have all garage doors.
Yes, that's correct.
Some of them are higher, so this guy here bumps up.
Right,
and goes
right,
up.
we see those.
I don't like to interrupt, but while we're on this color, does that represent brick? This brownish color, reddish brown?
It's actually, the one is brick and the other is a red, sort of a red hardy color, and it's hard because it doesn't necessarily print well on there.
Is that the
Well, leave it
country
to the
lane
end.
red?
That's all right, I just wanted to know while we're
Yes.
looking at it.
Yep,
That's the country lane red?
yes, thank you. Thank you, Ann.
And again, they're all called out.
Yeah, it's hard to see on here, but on the large elevations, they're all called out. Okay, so then 800 obviously is the other side of Main Street connected to 700. This is 22 units, very similar, 2 stories over retail. Again, we tried to bring, just get to 700 and 800. So this really gives you a great.
There's the other walkabout microphone too, it's already turned on the center.
We gave you the full-scale rendering so you could see on Main Street what that image is going to look like if you're standing on Main Street. That's 800. Okay, so now we're going to go to 900, which is on the other side of Main Street. So these are back-to-back, right? 7, 8, 9, and 10. So,
This is the west side of Main Street.
so 22 residential units, 2 stories over retail, the same with the retail on the bottom. Similar, concept back-to-back on Main Street.
So in building 900, both sides, the west and the east, both have the garage door fronts?
Yes.
Yes.
So you're anticipating on these buildings that there would be an entry from the parking deck as well as from Main Street, if I'm correct?
When you say from the parking deck,
If I park in the parking deck
yeah,
and I see
you have to go through
the west
connector.
elevation, you're showing me that there are garage doors, so I assume there are entrances down into the retail from this side.
Let's see that.
So right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the west elevation,
Are
that
they-
there's garage
Are they
doors.
separate tenant spaces, or is it one
And I
walk-through?
think
That's-
that was
that's what I was
probably
just
intended to be a
gonna
wall.
ask.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was, it's intended to be a wall.
It's intended to be service access.
Yep.
But you're going to keep the garage doors to roll up and down for service access? That's a mistake on the
So
plan.
there are no windows? Wait a minute.
Yes,
We're
yep,
gonna
sorry.
use the other one for Larry, maybe.
We'll get it together, we'll get it so we can both use this.
Or
So the idea when you're in the parking deck, there's 2 ways to get to Main Street. You can go through the connector, which will be a pedestrian corridor, or either the south of Building 1,000 or the north of Building 900, where we have sidewalks.
Okay, so comment noted on that, I
Yep.
do understand that one side. Okay, and then 1,000 is very similar, so 22 units, similar design with the 2-story over retail.
And
So this is
1,000
your,
is also showing the
Yes,
same garage
yeah.
doors on
Correct.
both
Yeah, yeah,
sides, so
yeah.
you need to correct both
Yep.
of those.
so this is your predominant Main Street. Main Street area, are these 4 buildings. So as we move to the south, again, we've got Building 1100, which this is 2-story over retail. There's a theme here. This is next to the Village Green, this building. There's 16 units in this particular structure.
Yep, this is showing correctly here. We got the garage doors on the Village Green side and the back side.
Actually, it should be labeled north and south
Sorry.
elevation, not west and east, no offense. I
They're-
caught all these things
Yes.
before, but they were too trivial for me to try to give you a heads up, but you need to
These
relabel
were
those.
caught she was so kind and caught these last night, and we couldn't catch them this morning because
Well, no, it's
we already
just-
had gone to print.
I was like, that's a really long, little short east wall there.
Yes, yeah. You know,
We
when you
get the
work on
intent, we get
it,
the intent.
yeah, you work on it and work on it and work on it, and sometimes the most obvious is the hardest to see.
We are human.
Yes.
No, it's just, this is a better example of what the service entrance looks like
Exactly.
on the back. That's
Yeah.
why I was sort of saying, what's labeled as west is actually going to be the south elevation.
What you have here is not only access for service on the retail side, but residential access to the lofts above.
Okay, then the next is the parking garage. Larry, if you want to.
Yeah, on this here, so the idea here is the first deck of the parking garage is at 116. The finished floor for the retail Main Street is at 116.5. All right, so it's essentially the same. When you go up one deck, each deck is 12 feet. So the second deck elevation plus the parapet puts us at an elevation of 132. That 132 is 2.5 feet below the first floor of the loft's finished floor. So it's not like the garage is gonna be up high and you're sitting in a loft looking into a garage. It's below it.
What we're looking at says the finished elevation of the second floor is 128, not 132.
It's 128 to that, and then when you add the parapet,
Ah,
you
so
add
the
4 more
parapet at
feet.
the
You see it
edge.
comes in right
Okay.
here,
It's 4
it comes
feet.
in here,
Right.
and
The
then there's a
parapet
4-foot
there.
parapet.
But
Right.
only on the two sides.
Right.
Right.
So, other question for you. This is the first set of buildings, the final back set of buildings, it's all residential. What is the base elevation there?
Of which ones?
The very back buildings that are all residential? Once you get past the 2 Main Street where it's 2-story over retail, the back buildings are all residential? Building 3 and
400 and we're
The
going down.
900 and 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 900, 1,000 are at 116.5,
So they're the same elevation?
same elevation.
Yeah, but you would actually, beyond just this, you would see another, at some point, you'd see distantly another layer of,
All Main Street, finished floor on Main Street, 116.5, all the
no, what I'm
same.
saying is that the back building,
Three
the very back buildings,
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
back
All
there,
right.
they're all residential. They stood at 116.5 too?
No, they go up.
That's what I thought. So, and I'm not, I'm being friendly, I promise.
Yeah.
But what you're showing here is just what we would see from the one set of buildings on
Correct.
Main
Correct.
Street.
Correct.
There will be
Correct.
other things that we're going to see
Yes.
behind.
Correct.
Yes.
I think that's what I was trying to get you
Okay.
to agree to.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it'd be helpful if you just superimpose those so we'd understand better what the overall view you'd see above the garage would be.
Understood.
Well, it's going to look like a little, it's going to
You-
look like a
Looks like a
town.
whole little town marching up the hill.
You are correct, you're right. Very good.
I just wanted to see what it's going to, what you're going to see beyond what the parking garage blocks
Right.
includes and what these include, because I guess. there should be
300 and
something above
400,
there.
right.
In the back.
Thanks.
So for purposes of this group, there was a lot of work that was put into this parking garage, if you recall. And so I just want to define what we've come up with. There is screening on this west side of the parking garage, in addition to the landscaping. There's screening, and we developed with this committee these wood panels that are going to be applied to the surface of the parking garage, which really will give it some articulation. In addition, these trees, this tree that you see on the top here of this slide, it's not really a tree, it's a metal panel.
Like the underwear factory.
Yes, yes.
If anyone is
Yep.
familiar with that.
Same
with
thing.
that, Yeah.
And I
Facing.
actually was in Athens last week, and I saw
You keep the
this,
underwear factory,
Yeah.
sorry.
this
Okay.
use. This is an amazing, I knew we were doing this, and I actually saw this in person last week, and it is incredible. It really provides a great screen
Is it,
on this
it's
project.
it's metal and
Metal,
perforated?
it was,
is that what
and
it
it
is?
was a tree. It was the exact same.
So we're going to have metal with the tree sort of superimposed on it, and then the
Kind of
wood
like
in
a
the
ghost
middle?
tree.
Correct.
Yeah,
like a ghost
I
tree.
mean, the metal
Okay.
is like anodized aluminum or stainless steel or
Yes,
something
yes,
like
Yeah,
that. It's
yes.
and the
painted.
tree is an image that's on that. It gives it depth.
It's
and-
stamped into it,
Okay,
you
let
know,
me
with
just
different,
Pop in here for myself and say, that's really good, because we had so many things we discussed about
Yeah.
trying not to be too modern with the roiling
Yeah.
and the wood, but this is great.
It
I
really
think.
is. And seeing it in person, again, for me, was just incredible.
Wow.
So
Is
it's,
it somewhere where the board could see it?
it's in
yeah.
Athens, Georgia.
Well, no,
Oh, no, we're not.
Actually, it's in Athens,
But
New York.
Marist, Marist
trip.
College, the
Yeah.
building on
Athens,
the
Greece.
left.
That was just redone a few years
Yeah.
ago.
The steel
Fantastic.
building.
Yeah.
on
Oh,
Route
but I
9.
meant the tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually saw the tree,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the concept is on the Marist building.
Oh, I
Yes.
know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and so, you know, we all drive past it and probably the first time say, oh, how cool, but then it just becomes a part of the landscape.
And the wood is natural?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
But it has some kind of seal on it, I take
Yep.
it.
Sure.
for- Okay.
Yep.
yeah. Okay, so back to the building. So now moving again to the south side of the parking garage is Building 1200, which is a mixed-use building. So it's 12 units, 2 stories over retail, again, similar to what you see on
Same
Main Street.
concept on Main Street.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, with the garage doors.
And then again, we got the back right on this one.
North-south.
Yes,
I know, this one is correct.
Yeah, that one is correct.
okay. So now down to building, sorry, this doesn't
Ci-
fit quite right on this
City
document. but-
Winery, yeah.
So building 1300 is City Winery, I think everyone knows. And this is all retail, 2 stories.
Did you want to see something on the top of that?
Yeah,
It's calling it
yeah,
to me.
I spoke to him
Okay,
about that.
okay, to move on this?
Let's just, I want to just point out,
Yeah.
this is still being worked on, as I understand,
It is.
right?
Yes,
Yes,
it's a work
yeah,
in
this is an
progress.
evolving,
Yep.
we do understand
Because-
that there's some additional
Well,
work on
you
this.
wanted to talk to the actual tenant, City Winery, before we kept going on too
Correct.
far for it, yeah.
Correct.
But I know that this, in other words, you could think of as a placeholder for right now, because they're still working on it.
Correct, yes, thank you. Okay, So building 1400, again, we're kind of scooting into the back, is all commercial. So this is a 2-story structure with amenities, and we just wanted, go ahead.
Yeah, the clubhouse amenity for all the resis will be the top floor.
In this building. And we tried to give you, point out on the rendering, you know, where this building is, just to give you an idea. So there's, you know, an outdoor pool, I think is, and some other club amenities that are in this building.
You know, what's interesting about that is on the key up above, it looks almost square,
Mhm.
but in the elevations, it looks like there's a short end and a long end.
Yeah, they're gonna work on the foundation, right?
Well,
Well, it looks that way because you only see the top, second floor roof, right? Because there's a pool there.
So-
Oh,
flat,
okay.
it's flat.
Right, so that's
Okay,
why.
got it. All right,
Yep.
keep going.
Wait, can I just, on City Winery, I know that it's a work in progress. Where is the main entrance? Where would someone,
No, that's-
It faces east.
East side.
It faces east.
oh,
That little,
Please, yeah, comment on it because we're, you know, we're talking to him about
It's in
it, so.
process.
wait, are you saying that comments tonight would be helpful?
Comments anytime. This is the real deal here.
Yeah, but
we'll
I'm,
get there.
wait until I call on
Okay.
everybody individually. That's, I hope everybody's kept notes on what they want to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Yes, so in other words, the entrance to City Winery faces the green.
And here's what Mike's comment was on the square
Yep.
versus the
Because the south.
Okay.
We're on
looks like front, but I
1500.
guess they don't wanna
Yep.
keep those.
All right.
So the next building is 1500. It's one of my favorites.
yeah, this is.
I love it. So this is mixed use, and this is 4 loft apartments over retail. This is 2 stories, just a quaint little building kind of tucked in here on the north side of the project.
Stephanie and I have just picked out our new homes.
There's only 4, so I've already taken one of them, yes.
We'll be joining you.
Okay, good. I think that one's
So,
full.
a good point to note here is that, you know, LMV is the, you know, production architect and really very helpful in taking Hart Howerton's vision and creating these elevations, but we still get Hart Howerton involved, and they do come back with some nice sketches. This is one of them.
Okay, building 1600 is on the north side of the property, and this is just a small retail building. There's
2 floors.
two
yeah.
floors in this particular
Yep.
building. Thank you. Okay. So 17, 18, and 19, I really put together on one slide because they're predominantly operational in purpose. So 1700 is the small building to the north of the circle, the little one. And this is the barn, you know, really the agrarian theme. And adjacent to this, if you see on the next slide, really the focus of the area around this is that agrarian theme and the
Yeah.
crop area and
I
so
could just
forth.
interrupt for a moment. I'm sorry, but it's not labeled here, so I'm not sure everybody's being able to see it. But the kind of biomorphic forms that you see both to the left or the north side of where we're talking about the little building, and then the one that's to the
Got it.
east, those are actually demonstration gardens for farm food. They're going to be raised beds,
It won't work
Tad,
on
if
the
I remember
TV.
correctly. And it's not flat, so they're going to be at a pitch, so they'll actually be walkable. You'll be able to have, I think, 3-foot walking paths, so
Mhm.
you can walk through and actually see what they're growing. And because this is going to change, even though they're raised beds, you don't raise the exact same thing in the same soil all the time. So that's what we talked about was, for our purposes, and this is for the board, what will be shown there are probably just some sort of tiers that you'll see for where they're going to be, the walking paths, and they'll show you what the raised bed would, whatever it's going to look like. But we're just going to list the potential crops there because it's really going to be changing every time. And
Evolving, yeah.
Annie has already designed also a children's garden that's experiential. So that's going to probably be on the other side, I think she said. So we're not going to nail anything down too tight on this, what I'm trying to say, because it's going to change and evolve. It's an educational sort of
Yeah, and they're crops.
experience.
It's a
Yes,
crop
it's
area.
crop.
Yep.
So that's why I said this is not going to look, you're never going to see this looking all landscaped out because it's going to change over time. I just want to make sure we're aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, building 1800 is really, this is the building that's at the entrance, which is down here at the signalized entrance. And this is predominantly the entrance barn. And we do have signage, which I'll go over later in this presentation on this particular barn. So this will be the entrance, you know, at the grand entrance to this project. So it's very purposeful to us. And of course, a small building in the back here is the maintenance building. It's actually on, this rendering is right here. And that's for some nominal equipment and so forth that would be utilized at the site. Just a minute to talk about operations. And so we've really taken a lot of time to think about the operations of this site. This isn't something that we can just have a lawnmower in the back and be able to mow the lawn. So much of the maintenance at this site will be third-party. So it would be landscaping and lawn mowing and snow plowing and so forth. So we understand that those parties will be coming on site and we'll identify where we think those locations are, if there was the need for equipment storage and so forth, where that would be.
You have some storage, you have actually ample storage here, I think. I do want to make sure that for the newer board members, when this was first reviewed 17 years ago, 18 years ago, there's going to be a series of interlocking HOAs, I guess I'll call them, for handling the maintenance. So in other words, there'll be like a commercial area, there'll be residential, some areas, then there'll be some overall kind of master for whatever the reasons are. That hasn't been, I think, those haven't been created yet, but they will be at some point, because that's how maintenance will be handled, I believe.
I think so.
I can get into that when we get into the plat.
Okay.
I can show you a few things.
In addition, refuse removal, so we're incorporating refuse collection in each of the buildings. So we've got refuse chutes that will be collected and picked up by whatever the refuse company that is on site, you know, just to try to keep this site clean and neat. And we understand how many times I've been to a wonderful site, and then you see garbage cans, and you think, why didn't they think that through? So we really have tried to be purposeful in this particular design.
Yeah, and on the site plan, we show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 service areas, refuge collection areas on the plan.
And then back again, just to building 700 or 1700, Mr. Chairman, as you had indicated, this is that agrarian theme. So this is the big zone and a big focus point of the design of this project. Okay, back again. So we're on the north side of the site, very far, or sorry, on the south side of the
south
site.
side.
This is the sales building. So this is two-story, around 10,000 square feet. And so this is a very inspirational, prominent building for us.
Kelly?
This is a
Yes.
3-story.
2.5.
Two,
So,
yeah,
so
two.
two in the front,
You
three in
label
the
it
back.
third, you label it 3rd floor on the plans.
Yeah.
What
It
is,
looks
it-
like a
what's
full
an
third.
inspiration building?
Yeah.
It's the sales building.
Okay.
Yep, this is the sales
And
building.
let's remember, when they say sales, this is also a leasing building for commercial tenants as well. In other words,
Yes.
this is not going to go away.
Yeah.
That was a question
Yes.
someone said, what does it become afterwards? I said, it will stay permanently because there'll always be
Of
leases
course.
and all that
Right,
stuff in through here.
right. Tom and I will have our office in there.
That's why
Bottom
it's the
floor, though.
inspiration building.
Bottom floor. Basement. I get a basement.
Okay. So this is, building 2100 is a retail, solely retail building, two-story. And this is just a 40,000 square foot building.
Is that the final design on this one?
This is not, so
I-
this
that's
is
what I
a
thought.
work
This
in
is still a
progress.
work in
Yes,
progress. So I just want to make sure people knew
yes.
that. By the way, this is, now that I'm looking, this doesn't have the same garage doors that the others do. These have
Correct.
just plain windows.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
This is less retail.
And I believe this would be the, I'm guessing, the east elevation rather than the south?
Yes, correct, yep. Okay, and then
Larry, you
last,
said this is.
Oh, sorry.
Less retail?
Yeah, this is in the tax free parcel.
Tax-free parcel?
Yeah.
Wait, the tax-free parcel is contemplated being tax-free because of
Yeah.
educational uses, not retail.
Okay. Say it again?
One more time. The tax-free parcel has educational uses on it, not retail.
retail,
No,
correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he
That's why
said
he
less
said that.
retail.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Yep. I think the
Retail.
nomenclature, this is, it's labeled incorrectly.
Thank you, okay.
Okay, and last but certainly not least is buildings 2200, 2300, and 2400, which are townhomes. So these are residential, predominantly residential, and there's 12 units in this particular area.
This is for sale, yes?
Yes.
I had a question on this. When I looked, they all say east elevation. Which, no, I think they are. But
They are.
So the rear is
They
not
are.
being shown, but is there a drive-in garage in the back?
There
or-
is.
Okay.
There is.
It's not evident from the site plan, that's why, because with this kind of thing, I think you'd want to have your car covered.
Yeah, what's interesting about this layout, at Howerton, the driveway is in the front, off of the main street. We put it in the back. When you put it in the back, the grade drops.
That's how you can have the
And you do a
garage.
drive.
Okay, thank you.
Will you be
Right.
showing us that eventually?
Yes.
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 Fine.
Yes.
Because the main entrance is now the back, are you gonna have, like, connections to the road out of the front?
Yeah, I can show you the site plan. It's all connected to the road that comes up from West Dorsey.
It's a sidewalk connection, okay?
It's
So that they'll have like a pedestrian walkway to connect to the sidewalk?
Yeah. So in the front, you're walking out onto a sidewalk.
Yeah, the front facade looks like a regular front facade. You're just-
Yes.
Yes.
you just
Yep.
garage under.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
In the back.
So, difficult to read here, but on your full-size drawings, you have the building colors and materials that.
Actually, the colors look better here than the full-size drawings.
Do they?
They really do, yeah.
Okay. So we've incorporated, again, a variety of colors and materials, much of what was identified in the Howerton design guidelines. The red, I think that we were talking about before, as you indicated, is that country lane red. That you were asking if that's the brick color. So there is some brick, but there was also that country. We did talk about at the meeting that we had, that one of the metal shingles, it's called Mission Brown on the nomenclature, but we do believe that this is a better representation of what the color actually is.
Which
And
one, they're on the top, which one do you mean?
Number 2, architectural roof shingle, timberline, Mission Brown. And so, reading that, you would think it's more brown than gray, but we think that the color, we're gonna bring actual materials. So sometimes these colors get labeled with names that don't necessarily coincide with the color. Does that make sense? So we think that even though it's called Mission Brown, this shingle is actually more predominantly gray with brown subtones.
Sort of like Country Lane Red looking brown.
Correct. Yes, yep, yep. Okay,
Right.
so now we go to,
This is the same one we saw before.
They're blown up.
yep. So
So,
this is,
I wish people could see that corner of the L in the far right building, with the
With the
cupola on
round,
top with the kind of
yeah.
round.
The
Yeah.
corner.
I mean, this is different from what we saw. This is an architectural enhancement. And it looks sort of Frank Lloyd Wright-ish to me, like Guggenheim or something there.
What is that purpose? What's that use?
right here.
Yeah,
This
but
is,
what's in
Yes.
that? What's in that?
this circle.
It's a deck, it's an outdoor deck. Yeah.
Sorry. This is definitely an enhancement for the L, so people who live there can actually go and sit out.
Get outdoor space.
In a pretty big area to
And
have a big
and it's
space.
looking right down, west into the Hudson.
And look who walked in, the architect, just in time for him to get his plaudits, his applause.
So, one of the things, again, that this architecture really takes into consideration is the use of indoor and outdoor space. And I think on the renderings, it gives you a better idea of, how those have been applied from the green parks and the rooftop uses, and in addition, the patios and the decks that are incorporated, so that all year long, people will be able to coincide on this particular property. So we think that this, we spent a lot of time on this, and I think this provides a better representation of the connections to the building. So it's a lot of information to take in at this reading, but it does show you what we're trying to explain is how those building connections are subservient or subordinate to the main building. And those connections really are the predominant common areas for the building: stairs, roof, or stairs, elevator, mail rooms.
Real quickly, in this image, the parking lot that's all the way to the north, you have no landscaping in that. Is that the parking deck, the top of the deck? I
Yes.
take it? Yeah, so that's
That's
just
what
going to
that
be,
is.
if you're stuck up there, you're going to be really hot. That's all I was going to say. Because you can't get landscaping up there.
Yes, correct. Yep. Okay, and then the next rendering, so this really gives you the perspective of the Main Street area if you're looking east. So this is 600, 700, and I think 300 and 400 behind it.
And you see the connector here.
We do. The connector in the rear looks like it has a different set of materials and cladding than
Yeah.
the middle one.
Yes.
Is that, so they're going to vary each one?
Yes, yep,
Is 500 on this one?
no.
Left of the screen.
Yes.
What?
This is, 500 is here,
Where? Oh.
Yeah.
so it's just going off this side of the screen.
But there is a rendering that has 500.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
we'll see it, we'll
Yep,
see it.
We'll see
and
it.
so again, this is where, when I was speaking in the beginning, it probably would have been great to have these slides up, but this is where you see where the architect, I think, did a great job of the articulation in different roof heights, different colors, different roof styles, different roof sizes and styles and so forth, where you get that, what we're calling the organized chaos with this particular project.
Yeah, and in this, you see the outdoor decks, rooftop decks on the right and left of
So
Green
right here.
400. Yeah.
In here.
That's an actual drawing. So they're showing the rooftop deck.
Is it okay to move on, or do you
Yeah,
want
I'm
to?
just, I'm fascinated by,
Yeah.
so the rooftop decks at either end?
Yes, correct.
Are those attached to the top apartment? In other words, not everybody just gets to use those,
Right,
in
you
other
go,
words.
no,
Okay.
no,
Mm-hmm.
go up, anybody in the building,
This
go
is
up the
common
elevator.
space.
It's a
Oh,
stair
okay,
tower.
so
Yeah.
that's a stair tower shown there.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big area to have an outdoor, that's nice.
And again, that's where this gives you that ability to show those indoor and outdoor spaces that we've created. There's also, you can get, really, there's a lot of detail on here if you sit and look, all the patios, which you can't
Yeah,
get from the
we're looking at
3D, or from the or the elevations. You just can't see the patios. And so if you look here, there's patios here, there's patios tucked in here. So these residents have indoor and outdoor space here, throughout the whole
There are
building.
some units that have two decks.
Wow. And by the way, the landscaping committee, Bonnie, the landscape architect who's doing this, we had discussions about what to put in here, into those,
Islands,
Islands?
pocket parks.
well, no, the islands right here, and she's gonna try to put in trees, but we even discussed what kinds of trees, how to box it in, et cetera, so.
So I think we're talking about these two areas here, right? The pocket parks.
No, I'm sorry, where the angle parking is.
Oh,
those little
okay,
bump outs that
sure.
come through those
Right here.
islands.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's gonna try to put in trees there, et cetera, and also make it such that there's like a ground cover, so it doesn't invite walking through it.
So it kind of ties along with that. An interesting comment that we had heard from the fire department was that, things that we don't think about is the location of trees relative to upper story windows and accessibility of being able to get a ladder truck. I wouldn't have thought about that. We pointed out to them that the,
25-foot wide clear, 25-foot up clear, right?
So these sidewalks in this particular area are these 15-foot sidewalks.
Yeah.
And so the fire department was very happy to hear that we have that, and it provides not only a great pedestrian experience, but it also provides greater accessibility for the fire department. Okay. So I'm going to get to 500 in a minute, but this is 100 and 200, so this is the opposite direction. This is to the south.
So that those outdoor spaces, you can actually go on the very top of the floor as well, I mean, the top as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Nice addition.
What's nice about here, again, you can see the pocket park in there. Hey,
It's a lovely
I
rendering,
got
just call it what it
landscape,
is.
I got landscape architecture in me, so.
And then the amenity in the clubhouse, so you can see the pool is in here, and then we do have this outdoor space on the roof, and then here's where you have that circular cupola to the south, which is that outdoor deck.
I can't compliment the circular cupola enough to the architect who's here. I think it looks great.
Okay, and then this is the 500 to 600, so this would be the buildings to the north. And then this is that connector that we were talking about in between those two structures.
And of course, they front the farm field there.
That's why these look like crops.
So by the way, I believe that, I think we've said it before, but just to make sure everybody on the board is aware, the connectors will now also be the mail rooms, right, for the residential areas?
Yeah, they perform a lot of purposes, but yes, that's going to be the common area. Elevators, fire access, stairs. Okay, so moving along, signage. So we recognize, signage is of course an important component to a project of this size. The signage options were very well outlined in the Hart-Howerton design guidelines. We've incorporated those on this plan, recognizing that a sign manual is needed for us to present to this board for their review. But what we did take a lot of time and talk about signage in these subcommittees, and one of the things that came out of that was design unity and consistency with the wall signs. So on every building, the architect has identified a plane at which all of the retail signage will be shown where you have a mixed-use project or a single-use project that's retail. And so, although we don't know the tenants, we don't know the size of the sign, and we don't know the size of the tenant, we've identified the plane and how that sign would ultimately be applied.
This is
once
what we
the
do
tenant
often,
is
is
known.
put in placeholders during site plan. Also, just for the board, as well as the audience, the planning board is required to weigh in on sign permits for signs that are visible from Route 9, 9G, or the Hudson River. I don't believe these are going to be visible from Route 9, so one of the things I was worried about was I didn't want you to come back and get a sign that go through us each time, but I don't believe that's required. You still need a sign permit, but it doesn't require review by the board.
Unless it's visible from that.
Unless it's visible from 9. So
So it'll be consistent with your own manual, and then it'll just be a
In other words,
ministerial
Understood.
permit.
we're making sure that you understand it's going to be easier for you, because we don't have to
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah, because every tenant that comes in, we would have to come back. Yes, so then they'll just come forward for a permit.
Well, there are some that will be visible.
Yes, there will be, but I'm just saying, the tenant signs, for the most part, because of the buildings where they face, we won't be ever really seeing them. I mean, we'll be seeing them because we walk around that site making purchases.
Yes, exactly. So then you also have other types of signage would be the monument signs and the road finding or wayfinding signs. So there were 3 proposed, if you want to call them monument signage. The first of which is at the southerly Route 9 entrance. So this is at the signalized entrance, and this particular building will be there. That's the predominant building at that entrance, with the property signage on the west side. As you move to the south, we are proposing to have a stone wall, really a prominent stone wall in that area that identifies the project as well, with some type of wrought iron lettering or something along the side of it. We just provided you with a sample of what we're envisioning for that particular area.
We
And
would
then-
suggest that you explore halo lighting on the letters rather than uplighting. It'll show up better at night.
Okay. And then the last sign would be over on West Dorsey. You know, as a reminder, this is a main entrance for the facility as well, that's open to the public. And we're going to have some sort of monument signage on that road as well.
When you say monument, you don't mean a directory sign, because you have way
Correct.
too many things for directory.
Yeah. Oh, and there's one up there? Oh, I didn't know there is a sign. Okay, sorry. I missed the wastewater treatment plant, so there's a sign at the northern entrance. Yep.
Because the north entrance of the.
I thought we took that one
It'll
out.
be in the sign manual.
Yes, correct.
Tad, are they allowed all these signs?
Yes.
I didn't think so.
We're-
You don't get all these signs automatically, so this would be variations with the town board.
We
I'm just saying, and
Yes.
you may also want to consider, while you're doing this, a signage along St. Andrews over on that side. That's up to you guys.
But, good.
Because there's an entrance off St. Andrews that will be utilized by some. Let me put it to you this way: if you're living in Pleasant Valley or Clinton, you're going to probably come down and go through 9G and come in through that entrance
Right.
on St. Andrews.
Yes.
So
Yep.
you want to have adequate signage there too.
Speaking of variations, so our initial review, in addition to the signage, is the variation that's required for the height. And if you recall, there were guidelines and, I don't know if I can call them bulk requirements, but criteria for the height of the buildings, and they were set at 46 feet. And so the buildings in the back, which are 100 through 600, are slightly larger than, or taller than the 46 feet. Some of this is driven by the fact that these are structures over parking garages, and we wanted to ensure that we have, you know, how many times have we gone in the parking garage and the roof is so low, so we wanted to make sure that we had adequate height for people when they're parking in the garage. So instead of 10 feet, we want to have a 14-foot ceiling height in the garage. But also because of the way that height of the buildings are calculated using average grade. So this will be presented to the town board in the form of the variation request. But we just wanted to make sure that we brought that to your attention. Just so you can get a sense of what those areas look like. These are the buildings that are along the back, the furthest east side, so it's 100 through 600. Yes.
And we also want to clarify that the planning board has the authority to make a recommendation to the town board concerning the variation on height. So it's important that you consider it so that you can formulate a recommendation.
So what I'd like to propose, just for the board real quickly, is that I'd like to set a public hearing on this, maybe for November 16th. Not right now to do this, but the reason why I say that is, before we make any recommendations to the town board, I think we should also hear from the public about these heights. And so if we set the public hearing for the 16th, whatever we hear that night, that can go into our discussion of what we want to recommend on it. Does that make sense?
So for purposes of the analysis, we did prepare this board just so that you can see a representation of all of the buildings. And the board on the top are the 6 buildings that require the variation. The board on the bottom isn't. So you can see it's a very de minimis increase in height, really not noticeable by anyone who may be walking. And again, predominantly, this is going to be accepted and addressed in the form of grading and landscaping.
When we came in front of you with the hotel, we defined 5 main roads for the open development plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 is the main entrance, 2 is the access up to the hotel, 3 is off of West Dorsey, 4 is the northern entrance on the DOT, and then 5 goes back to the wastewater treatment plant. So what we're doing, because we're coming back with this phase, we're extending those roads 1 through 5 and labeling them, 4A, 4B, 4C, and then 2A and 3A and so forth. And we define in the ODA the widths of the road. And really the one to point out is the section of road going through Main Street, because as you know, we went from parallel parking to angled parking, and we went from 5 feet of sidewalk to 15. So that went up to 96 feet, the full width, instead of 72 feet. So along that, that's the main thing. And again, it's all defined, all the road profiles are all.
I'm just going to pop in real quickly because if there are people watching us, ODA that we're using, the acronym is Open Development Area, and it sounds complicated, but it's not. Under New York State law, you're required to have lots fronting on public roadways, but if you don't, if they're private roadways, then the town has to declare an open development area. That's all. And this is being geared because we're going through this process again because it's tied to the individual lots as well. So it's just an explanation for other people watching.
Could I bring up something here, Larry? While you just
Yeah.
just started talking about Road A, where you switch to the head-on angular like parking, and I was just looking at it, and I understand why you did it, because you're looking that maximizes the number of parking spaces. Just so we all realize, I mean, Road A is going to be busy, and people are going to be backing out all over the place. To me, it's going to be dangerous, but I'm not sure that there's that much you can do about it. I don't know how wide that the drive aisle is, but I haven't looked at the detailed, site plans, but, typically on Main Street, if there's a Main Street, it's like parallel type parking, you don't get that much parking. I get why you did it, but I just bring it up as
You look at
something
the
that
guy
I
who still
noticed.
can't parallel park at 65, so.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
No, I can't.
to answer your question, Pete, the drive lanes are 13 each, so it's 26 feet wide, the corridor, and then 20 feet each side for the parking. Plenty of room in there, and then 15 and 15, that gets the 96. But we went with 26 feet. We didn't go with 24 or 22. We went with 26 feet.
It's just with the angular parking, people are backing out, and there's cars coming down. It's going to be busy, but again, that's just, I'm just bringing it up. I'm not saying there's anything you need to do
Well,
about it.
this shouldn't be a
Just-
raceway, though. This is an internal circulation road, even if it's the main road.
Right, no, but it's technically Main Street, right?
But there are crosswalks, like where you go through from the,
Yield and.
yeah. I
Correct.
mean,
And I think the intention is that, is to create a slower environment so that people are slowing down through there. But
Again, I'm just,
You raise it.
it's just like an observation. It's not,
I-
it's not like negative or anything like that. Well, I mean, maybe it does sound negative, but it's not meant to be.
I want to say the Nanuet, the town center there, like I said, it's kind of comparable with the retail, except they never put the mixed-use part in there.
Oh,
But I want to say that they have the tables, for some
Calming
of the
tables?
pedestrian
Right.
areas.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it's kind of a pain in the neck, I know sometimes with the snow plowing,
For the
et
plowing,
cetera,
yeah.
but it is a way of.
Traffic calm.
Yeah,
Yep.
traffic calming.
Yep.
The wide
They-
one, so then it's less of a pain.
Well, we have-
Kelly knows this.
Mavis.
I was going to say, behind Mavis, they did traffic calming there, so it wouldn't speed, and those are those tables or are those
Humps.
humps, I think, bumps?
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's
Like
tables.
this.
You're right.
And the tables are generally
Humps
where you would
tables.
have also a pedestrian crossing, so it's a flatter area
Very
where people can
visual,
cross.
and
Yeah,
You automatically want to stop your car.
yep. So we can look at some of those, but I
So
think,
tables, because when you're going through the pocket park to pocket park, passing through, that's got to be a pedestrian area. That's where you could put one of your parking tables, and then you have also, at the ends, you have all the sidewalks too, so you would have maybe a series of 3.
Well, one way, I mean, we are draining it, High Point to High Point to the center, so we do have these high points where we could do that without having to drain it.
Good. Thank you, Pete. We interrupted your flow, your narrative
Oh, yeah.
flow.
So, we're almost done here. This is the sketch plan which we submitted, so this guy shows 16 total lots. Oops.
Oh.
Why is
Who's
Putin
that?
on the screen?
Oh, man.
Let's not go there,
He's
okay.
taking over our.
Microsoft Edge has been updated.
I'm sorry.
Vladimir Putin has taken it over.
It's everywhere.
Oh, boy. So here, just flip to the next one. So this shows the context of the phase. I'm going to point out lot 7. So lot 7
I
grabs,
don't think I can.
okay, grabs the main street, grabs all the access up off of Route 9 and West Dorsey, and it also has the farm area and the village green. So all these are maintained by the Master Association.
I was gonna say, that's the big,
Yeah,
huge one.
that's the big one. As this project grows, the area of the Master Association gets
Bigger and bigger, yep.
bigger and bigger, and lot 1, which is the sponsor's lot, gets smaller and smaller. So, now within the village neighborhood itself, and we're still working out all the details, we are working with HOA council on this and all the filing with the AGs. It's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
We are working through the neighborhood HOA, so you'll have a neighborhood HOA and then the master HOA, and so we're working through all that. And this defines, at this point, it defined the 16 lots. It's still, I mean, this is pretty close, but again, it's being reviewed by the attorneys. And the next step, of course, is the preliminary plat and then final plat, and then you'll start seeing all the parcels defined, you know, with meets and bounds and areas and really tied in, and easements, and access easements, and all the utilities will have their easements on them. It gets pretty complicated, so we'll be zooming into 30 scale probably on this map.
That architecture, next steps, that doesn't look like anything we just looked at. What is that?
Yeah, this is just an older
That's old.
image, yes.
This is old.
Yes,
We've seen this a long time.
yes,
Shows the growth.
yes.
It's a beauty shot.
We've come a long way, let's just say that.
Something over which to put type.
Yes. So the next steps, obviously,
Engage
I think that we've outlined the architecture is certainly to solicit comments from the board and its consultants, but it's so important that we also solicit the comments from the public. So we're hoping that the board would consider tonight setting that public hearing.
Well, like I said, that's what I'd like to do, and I know that we're going to have another submission in between that and the public
Correct.
hearing. So what I'd like to make sure we do is, I'm going to encourage every board member to speak as candidly as possible. Also, well, no, don't, just go ahead and say what you think. I mean, this is really far along. Those meetings, I can't again thank Rob and Ann enough, because I don't know how many hours you guys spent on your own doing it. I know you spent many hours before we even came here. That's what Kelly was alluding to beforehand. So, but let me start as always with our consultants first. Bonnie, I know this is a huge project. You haven't issued written comments yet. And the reason why I encourage everybody up here to make sure that you speak clearly and succinctly and directionally is because Bonnie will probably incorporate a lot of those comments that she hears tonight from us into her final memo. Okay?
So just a couple. Again, I love the way this was set up with the PowerPoint. It makes it so much easier to be able to understand and comprehend all the buildings and all the space and all the units. So I think that's wonderful. We talked about the inset for the connector. We talked about the industrial garages that was brought up. I had a question with regard, the building lengths with the connectors. I don't know how it's going to read visually at the ground level as you're walking along, but altogether, the length of the building is about 500 feet. And do you know of a block in Poughkeepsie or somewhere nearby that it's about 500 feet in length in terms of its feel? I was just checking Rhinebeck, and I know the one block on Market, you know, when you make the right as you go northbound, I think that's like 300, 350. So it's getting close. But I was just curious if you visually knew of a block that was around that length.
I personally don't.
Or maybe just to think
Yeah, we
about
can
where it might
research
be.
Yep, we can
I think
research and
downtown
see.
Poughkeepsie on Main Street,
Yeah, I'm sure.
those are really long blocks at first. As you go east, they shorten, but like the one where Brasserie is, that's a really long block. There's a non-existing building that gives you a way to walk to get to there are two paths, I should say, so it's not contiguous. There's a pass-through, in other words, to get
Yeah.
to parking in the rear on the south side. But, and there's only one of those on the north side of Main Street. You can
Perhaps-
actually drive through that now, where
Yep.
the bank used to be in the back. Those will give you an idea of what the
And maybe
500 feet
Beacon,
is.
we can see if there's.
Yeah, I
a
was gonna
block in
say
Beacon.
Beacon, just again, because here, the original Omega design, agrarian, was going to have smaller buildings. And so since these are larger buildings, I think it's just useful to, again, compare it to something that already
Understood.
exists in the area. Just to point out to the board, I think there's use of mansard roofs here.
Yes.
And the windows there, or in any other of the buildings, like the shed dormers, et cetera, are those faux, or are those actually letting light into, let's say, the uppermost floor? Or is it just to break up the bulk and the massing and articulate the
Mr. McCormick
facade?
is here.
Well, Matthew's here, I think he can.
Oh, Matthew's here too, right. Whoever wants to respond.
So I think for the most part, there's pretty good massing. So it will be determined if we, oh, sorry, thank you, Kelly. So it'll be determined if we can use them on the upper levels, but they certainly could be, used on the inside. But right now, from the architectural point of view, for the look of the building, it really does break up the massing of the mansards.
Okay. Those mansards, for me, often, they just read a little flat, but other than, instead of having a gable, or just a straight, rooftop instead of having the mansard on top. So I would just take a look at it, consider it, does it read right to you? But specifically the mansards, especially if they're not being used for the upper level, if they're really just faux. We talked about the 500-foot parking garage. In terms of parking in general, you had a parking plan that was colorized, and there are obviously the residential units that are in the mixed-use buildings. Are the tenants going to be on the on-street parking spaces? And what ensures at night that they have parking in general? Like, how do we ensure the tenants have kind of dedicated parking?
Yeah, they're generally not on the Main Street, they're in the back, and we can review that, or we can go back to it, yeah. So, this guy. It's hard at this scale, because the way we did it is R and C, so the spaces are actually defined R and C. So I can respond to that.
Okay. Thank you.
But you're not going to have some private security force out there saying you can't park here.
We're not. We're not.
I mean, this whole site has to be shared to a certain extent.
Exactly, so that's why we want to make sure, again, we didn't take the 25% credit on shared parking.
I remember, I was upset when you said it.
Because we think we're going to be pushing.
You want your tenants to have, at least to say, you get this number of spaces. It may be shared, but you want this number of spaces you
Yeah, we
get.
don't want people fighting over.
Normally, there's a permitting system for overnight parking.
A permitting system. I don't know if they're going to have a permitting system, but I think the intent is to create enough during, we always design for the holidays, right? To have so that
Thanksgiving and
with the peak,
Christmas.
yes. So, but we've tried to take into consideration, as Larry had said, how many units, how many parking spaces per unit, and then in addition, other spaces that are outside underneath of those structured parking.
Plus, I just want to say, I mean, I've been thinking about this. If you have one of those townhouses or one of the cute places that Stephanie and I are going to live, if you have parties, you need to have room for people to park as well.
Yeah.
And you, and we both were like, that's a cute building. You can take that side, I'll take this side. And Kelly has one too.
Right.
so-
Well, you
But
won't
we,
be
of course,
invited because you can't parallel park.
Right.
But we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have a mixed-use project here, and of course, we all know that we usually see parking heavily for the retail during the day, and as people come back to their houses at night, then they use those parking spaces at night.
What this plan shows is every space being used, for commercial and residential, all at the same time. this parks it.
So it's
And we,
the maximum.
and we know
It's a
that
max.
that's the max.
So you've essentially provided a parking space for every single,
Yeah.
okay,
One and a half.
At the
demand.
same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So no credit for mixed use.
Yep.
Well, but part of the reason for that is because a lot of your mixed use is going to be restaurants, which
Correct.
operate both during the day
Yes.
and at night.
Yes.
And remember, this town, it's, I think you're, that's,
Starving.
yes, I think you're going to have the town excited about the new restaurants there.
No, you can't do shoot.
That's not criticizing any of our wonderful restaurants in the town. We have the best restaurants in the
Right.
county.
We just need more.
But the variety will increase.
Correct. Okay.
And the
Thank
more
you.
variety, more people will be coming.
Yes, and more people will be coming here.
That's, at this point, I'll just raise them as part of my comments. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Peter?
Like, at this point, we don't really have much. We're waiting for the SWIP to get, submitted. That's really our biggest, role here. So, we'll wait for that. The health department's gonna approve the water and, the sewer and, and all that. So, but I did have a question, Larry, on the subdivision. I'm a little confused by the maps we got because it just says lots 1 and 3. What about all the other lots that you've shown?
Yeah, so that, we submitted that separately because that has all the existing conditions on it.
Yeah.
I mean, in order to meet the requirement for a sketch plan, you gotta have the, and it was
Existing
very-
conditions.
It was very
This is their
confusing, the
sketch,
map.
Pete.
So we submitted that separately. That's the filed map. That's what that is.
This is their sketch plan.
Oh, so that does show everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
what happened is, at this point, the sketch plan was included in the submission, and so we recognize that as we move forward, that
It
the
has to come out.
subdivision component of it will be pulled out and made as separate mapping.
Right, trying to put that on that map there.
It's impossible.
It was.
So
Okay.
just to show
Pat and I,
the,
we couldn't follow the lines. It was,
Yeah, we were trying to do that one day at the trailer.
yeah, so that's what we decided.
Okay.
Anything
That's it
else?
for now.
At the preliminary plat, much cleaner because we're gonna go down to a manageable.
Yeah, you have to
scale.
make them bigger so you can see it, right, okay, that's fine.
Ms. Moss, any comments? Please get the microphone.
Thank you. Some action is required by the town board before this board can make an approval. We need to have the ODA application. I recognize that there's something that's been submitted to the planning board. Last time we went through this, the ODA request went to the town board, and then it was referred to the planning board. I'm not sure why this process is the other way around. There are also variances or some kind of accommodations that need to be made by the town board compared to the approved concept development plan. Again, we're waiting for the conceptual SWIP. I think that there should be some kind of a building phasing plan where you can kind of pick and choose which buildings, not relative to building, they don't have to be in sequence. You can build any building on the phasing plan at any time, but you're not going to build all of them all at the same time. So I think there should be some kind of a
Yeah,
division.
they're going to take over every contracting company in the
Well-
county to do this.
Well, they're going to do all the grading all at once.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I think we ought to understand how logically it's intended to progress. I'm wondering, I had asked for the building footprints so we can see the articulation.
yes, we,
So that will be coming?
correct.
Is there any rooftop equipment on these buildings? Like for air conditioning or? Not planned, it's going to be inside or? Okay, good. Okay. And then Larry mentioned some solid waste areas, solid waste
Pickup areas.
depositories
Yeah,
or
pickup areas.
whatever. They need to be kind of worked out a little better with circulation and truck access and screening and, trying to figure out how they're really going to fit into the development so they don't look like a sore thumb. And then the pass-throughs, when we went over the architecture at one of the prior meetings, the pass-through is always shown from the side where there's big opening and a setback in the pocket park. But it doesn't translate to that on the back side of the building. The back side of the building is into the hillside somehow, and there are steps, I guess, for the pathway that connects them. So I think that needs to be described a little better on the plans and to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Just
Moss.
With respect to the ODA, there was really a courtesy that was given to this board first, and so we do recognize that that application has to go back to the town board, but we thought, since we were presenting tonight, we would present it to you, and we are advancing this to the town board.
Ms. Polidoro, comments?
So for the board, we did have a meeting today with Bellfield's attorney and the applicant to discuss the process moving forward and how to coordinate some of these referrals, because like we were just talking about with the ODA, it does go to the town board first, and then they refer it back to the planning board for referral. And so some of these things are here so that you can get a head start on that review. You're not expected to give your referral tonight. I want to talk about subdivision approval quickly, because normally when we do an application that has both site plan and subdivision, we look at both at the same time. The applicant has provided the sketch plan, and they're requesting that you accept the sketch plan tonight, but then requesting that subdivision approval be a condition of approval. I think we would at least want the preliminary plat, so that even if it's not approved, we can key the approval to something, so it's not just vague.
We can do that. We can do that.
Okay, so.
It's just getting the final plat approved, and you have to review it. 3 or 4 councils on our side have to review it. There's a mortgage on the property, they have to review it.
Right, filing of the plat takes a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into filing it, and
Easements
that would
for
be a
every one of
condition
the
before they build. But,
We can do that.
but at least having a preliminary plat for everyone to look at, so we understand what filed plat needs to,
So in
what
other
it
words,
means.
there's easements, there's meets and bounds per lot. So
Yeah.
what we had discussed today for the board, and nothing, as always, was agreed upon. It's just sort of the best path forward would be to, if we approve the final development plan, make that a condition that they would continue on with the subdivision until they got it, because it's going to take them a while. You can't even get surveyors very easily right now. So it's going to take a while once these lots are established to go through the next steps before they can actually finally file it.
Right.
So, and if anybody's wondering about why we would still go through this, Kelly and I had this discussion today. Owen Rafter, the Commissioner of Planning, when I was on the County Planning Board, asked me if I thought there would be some good courses, and I said yes. Have some planning board members learn how you finance these projects, because most everybody seems to think that everybody out there has deep pockets, they can just reach in and go here. It doesn't work that way. You have to. Stephanie knows because she was a developer as well. So, but I've always thought that'd be a good class. But most people will not lend, or nobody really lends anymore unless you have some kind of approval from a planning board, because it's too risky that you could take the money and do anything you wanted to with it. So what they're looking for is trying to get a preliminary, to get conditional site plan approval, or final development approval, sorry, as soon as possible. Yes, Bonnie?
I was just gonna, to add to Victoria's point about the subdivision, it's useful because, especially with all the common space, what gets attached to what? Or, are you gonna basically have footprints for the individual buildings, and then all the parking, et cetera, is some common entity? So I think it's just useful to understand now how you kind of going to manage all that.
So this sketch drawing, I think, fairly well articulates what our plan is for the location of the individual lots and respective buildings and common areas.
Okay.
And so we're going to move forward from this.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Lot 7 is the master HOA, Lot 12 would be the village
Right.
HOA that maintains the parking within the village.
I was gonna ask whether it made sense to almost do your sub-phasing plan on a lot-by-lot basis, because when you go to get you're not gonna hold up a CO for a building on a separate lot anymore, right? So.
Yeah, good point.
It might make sense to key those together.
That's actually a very good point. I hadn't thought
Yeah,
about
because it's the
that.
same thing that you came up with on the wastewater treatment plant.
Right.
Where we have
Yep.
you know, the phases for that,
Mm-hmm.
which everybody, you know, Don Westmeyer and all that, it's all working out.
And then just last comment, the board a few months ago finished a, very thorough reevaluation of the seeker impacts of the master development plan. And so this project is coming in accordance with the master development plan, something you'll have to, confirm. So you don't have to undergo a full seeker review, but I'm recommending that you do a courtesy circulation to the other involved agencies, just to let them know that, you are the lead agency, you received this plan under the master plan, and that you're going to review and evaluate it, and to let you know if they have any comments.
These are the same agencies we sent to before, in other words?
And in fact, I think I limited the list even further. There doesn't seem to be a need to go to DOT at this
Right.
point. That's
No DOT.
built and permitted. So more limited to DEC, Department of Health.
But in other words, they'll be needing permits from the agencies that they're going to anyway. So this is a courtesy to say, hey, heads up, this is going to be coming over to you. So, you still have to go to fully engineered plans. I know not these kinds of plans to get to everything else you need. So, thank you, Victoria. And I believe that with the possible exception of the change in height, but that's only 4 to 5 feet in every case. I can't imagine that being negative visual impacts. That's why also, though, Larry did say, if you can show us all the buildings that you're going to see beyond the parking deck, then that would help us.
7 feet at the worst.
Yeah, 7 feet at the worst. So, that's in terms of significant visual impact, because there's already a visual impact, and it's in many ways an improvement. Thank you again, the architects. Let me start with some comments from the board. Let me start to the right. Mr. Gercio?
It's pretty intense, to say the least. It looks a lot better since I last looked at it. Very excited about it. I had one question. When you were talking about chutes for garbage,
Correct.
how does that work?
So there's internal chutes where each of the residents, whether it's on each floor, can drop their garbage in, and then it
Goes down into a dumpster?
It falls
Or-
down into an interior area where the garbage is collected and then disposed.
That garbage dump is pushed out and then dumped by the truck.
Okay, I mean, that sounds like a great idea in theory. But, and the other question I had was, the agriculture areas that you're putting aside, like, who maintains that?
The master HOA.
Master HOA?
Yep.
So do tenants plant there, or?
Yep.
I mean, I'm just asking for my own education.
Yeah, there'll be a whole program, defined. We hired, Annie, that's Annie's barn. She'll have
Okay.
teaching over there.
Okay. I mean, it looks fantastic. I'm excited about it, and hopefully, we can get it done fast, and you start building.
Right.
Before I go on to Chris, are we sure that the garbage chutes are still per building code? I live in a high-rise in Manhattan, and they lock them. I'm just making sure you know. That's number one. Number two, what are you going to do about recycling? Because our building picks up all the recycling that we put. This is the city.
Rats in the city.
Oh, it's rats in the city?
In your city, New York City.
No, I was saying in New York City.
It's a cat.
But what I mean is that's, what are we doing about recycling? Are you just going to have them toss that down the chute as well, or?
We'll flush out that, no pun intended. So we'll flush that out and
Yeah.
get it.
Just make sure that it's per building code now, because I don't know why, but
Understood.
they're locked in
You're
3 of the
right.
buildings I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
okay.
So,
Dumb waiters and all that
yeah,
stuff.
dumbwaiters are not allowed either anymore. I think it's fire hazard, that the fire could go up,
It's a
something.
chase, it becomes a chase, I believe, right? Yeah.
Okay,
Fire.
all right.
Just
Well,
make sure that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Oliver.
So I am also very excited about this project, and I have been for quite a while. But my family and I, we visit Eastdale in Poughkeepsie often, and I think this is, anybody that's been there, this is going to be like an Eastdale on steroids for Hyde Park. And as a town and a resident, our town greatly needs this. This is going to be phenomenal. I'm not going to get too caught up on architecture because that's not my strong suit. I think it looks phenomenal. I like the colors. I was looking at it, and I saw like a couple of off colors in the L-shaped building, I don't really see how it ties into the reds and the browns and the beiges. I would be fine with keeping things kind of contiguous through the whole site. But my main comment is going to be about the logistics of a site of this scale, and particularly to maintenance. It's kind of my special area. So the maintenance shed being in the southeast corner of Phase 2, yep, I think that it would be, if possible, better suited near the sewage, near the wastewater treatment center, for a couple of reasons. As the full build-out of the site grows, your maintenance area is going to grow. And you're going to be taking deliveries of large equipment for snow removal, bulk materials for salt, also bulk materials for mulch and, lawn care. So you're going to want tractor-trailer access. And I don't think that you're really going to want to have that next to your residential area. So if you could put it way off, so you're not dealing with site contractors, equipment, and material storage in the bulk of your area, I think that's going to really, it seems kind of minor, but I think it's going to be make a big impact on the site.
Okay.
Because I run into that stuff all the time.
It's a very important point. That maintenance area is generally for the apartments. We're going to have to add another one based on what you're saying over by the wastewater treatment plant where we do have truck access. So
Yeah, you're going to want truck access. And
Bulk
those
storage,
operations,
I
snow
mean, the
operations
salt.
are 24/7. You don't want the machines and crews gathering
Yeah.
next to somebody's residence.
Yeah.
So, just something to think about, and especially on a site of this scale, and it's going to grow, so, that's going to be a crucial part of the site's success, so.
Good point.
That's why he's-
Other than that, I'm just overly excited. I can't wait. I can't say it any other way.
You notice that Chris doesn't show his excitement, he just says his excitement.
Thank you very much, guys. You did a phenomenal job, and thank you to my board members who have been able to put so much thought and effort into this, awesome design.
Remember, Chris has a degree in urban planning as well as his experience, and that's why when I heard what he just said, you're right, Larry, you will need another location, because that's not big enough, and you're right, you don't want to have people being woken up at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. by crews gathering to do stuff. It's an excellent point, Chris, thank you. Ms. Wasser?
Yeah, so great progress, and, I'd love to see all the work that's been done, and I love the key. That was super easy to work with. Special thanks, I want to repeat it, to my two colleagues to my left who have given so much time on the architectural input. I don't have an issue with the extra height that you're going to be requesting. I think it's, I don't know if it's de minimis, but I don't have a problem with it, so I support that. Building 500 is really one of the only buildings that keeps jumping out at me. It's in plain. There is no articulation or relief on 500. On the one hand, you could say that is a form of relief to all the other gables and movement, but I think it's, that connector and the building to its right, along with the mansard roof issue on the other locations, not just, but I'm just telling you
So
my
the-
reaction to building 500.
The west side of building 500.
Yes, the elevation.
Okay.
I just think it'd be a little more interesting. The colors are greatly improved. I'd love to see one more color added for just a little more variety. I'm not gonna say what color, that's not my area of expertise, but there's a lot of gray and dark red, reddish brown, and it might be nice to add one more color in. I don't love the faux mansard, I think I said that, okay. The parking garage, is there any way to do like, like those landscape bricks, green anything on the top of that? Have you thought about that or
on
discussed
top of
the top level of the parking garage? I can't imagine you didn't talk about it, but I'm wondering if you can take another look at that.
Okay.
I know it costs money, but people will be looking at it, but, let's see. elevator penthouse, you said there was no mechanical equipment, right? But don't the elevators have penthouses? And how those will be screened?
So I'm not sure about the design of the elevators and whether or not.
They don't have a penthouse?
Yeah.
Because they're only 4 stories?
They're just in the connectors, right?
Yeah, they're just.
Just in the connectors, okay.
They're all hydraulic elevators.
Great, they're hydraulic, okay, so,
They're not
I didn't know they could go more than 3 stories.
What's that?
I didn't know they could go more than 3 stories. Okay, that shows how long ago I developed the building with a hydraulic elevator.
Lighter weight.
And just, those are my comments, and really looking forward to seeing it move forward, and very supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Waters?
Yeah, my question is, well, yeah, I've discussed it, and I think there is a thought process to possibly working on it a little bit further on some of the things. So I didn't want to go through all of that. So I just did just a little quick thing, is the color. Just more color. I'm a big color person, and in specific areas, not overloaded with color, specific, keep it, low square footage, so the cost is thought of, but it could have a little bit more pop to it. And the colors that complement, what you already are showing. I'm not talking about like big splashy, flashy colors. That was one thing. The bridge structures, we talked about showing the grade on one side on a 3 elevation on the east side, 3 stories on the east side, and then on the west side of that same building, it's 4. How would you be opening that up to get out? So
Where there's
we talked
grading.
whether it's a ramp
Yep,
or
yep.
something,
Correct.
and I don't know if that has to be ADA, like compliant with handicap accessibility to get through. I'm not sure. That's why on a sketch that I previously had done, I had it as a courtyard area where the bottom could be used as actual retail or rental for bigger storage facilities for units in those buildings. It's just something that I had thought of, and I thought of that as being a more open air concept. And that, I provided you a sketch of color rendering of that. Let's see, and we would want to see, you said that you were going to show more development in the city winery building and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's just a comment that there are still other buildings that are being further developed.
Correct.
And they're not going to be forgotten about. And then when appropriate, just some samples. Just so we could start getting maybe a little bit of a thought process on the color palettes. Because I think that'll drive color too.
Of course.
And might actually solve all the problems. So, and that's it, really. Everything else I think
spent a lot of
in our
time.
meetings,
Yeah.
we've said it all,
Yes,
so.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Great.
Ms. Weiser?
Great progress.
So, just quick question on the garage doors. Are those glass? Or is that just, I'm just saying like.
I've been wondering that too, and that was like one of my
Yeah,
questions.
so
Is it
my-
metal mesh, like in, city that looks
Are we
horrible and
cutting off a
urban?
lot of
and-
light into this retail?
Mike can speak to it. Here you go, Mike.
Mr. McCormick, you're being called on.
Yes, but it's a retail storefront, so you want.
We want,
to
we want the light to come in. You
Yeah,
want to see.
yeah, you want to be able to see
Okay,
every
so
light.
it's not just
Yeah.
like, it's not
No,
when you
yeah.
do at night in the city?
Yeah,
When you, okay.
It's like lexicon or something, right? It's like a.
Okay, just
yeah.
some kind of, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So, amazing job, you guys. It's really, this is phenomenal. It's such a great, I just can't thank you enough. You've worked really, really hard. My question, or my concern is also color. With the exception of buildings 7, 8, 9, and 10, because there's a lot of nice variation between the colors. Like there's gray, white, red, brown, gray, white, red. There's enough variation in that. With the exception of those buildings,
All the other ones.
like all the others, 1600, 2200, 2300, 2400, and 1 through 6. Those are all, it's a mind-numbing sea of gray and white. It's just, we need to put some more color in there.
Eastdale.
Yeah, it's too Eastdale. It's a mind-numbing, it's just like gray and white and gray and white and gray and white, so we need some variation in there, in those 10 buildings. That's it, thank you.
Can I ask another question? before you-
No, yes, you may.
Just, we're talking about the storefronts. We had discussed at one point putting some approvable details so that if a tenant comes in and wants a modified storefront, for instance, if they want a full glass window versus a door for retail, it would just be an option that they could have. Is that going to be allowed, or is garage doors going to be required for everyone?
No, I think that can be allowed. I do remember talking about it. It gives it variety.
It's just like we talked about with the awnings that you're proposing.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say.
I was gonna say, what we
Yeah.
said was, it's just
Yeah.
like we did with the Enclave, where we said you can have, if you, the planning board will approve these 5 or 6 different kinds of fences that anyone can just say, I'll pick that fence, and then fence their backyard. Same thing with the canopies. If you can just show us, the details, then anybody can just say, we'll put from that one, that one, that one. It's very easy.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
way.
I think garage doors work great for restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, but retail sometimes wants big glass windows for products.
So I think what, along the lines with what Mr. Chairman was saying is that on the plans, we're going to provide some variations of types of awnings.
So those are coming.
Either it's wood, or it's metal, or it's
Yeah.
fabric. We can do the same for the storefront.
Okay,
and just
great.
And I had
show
just-
some options.
I was gonna say, I just saw a garage that a friend of mine's, or part of the house was building, but the windows in the garage doors, they're real garage doors, functional, but they're opaque. So they have light that gets let in, but you can't see inside if she's there or not, or cars or anything else. I'd never seen these before. I thought it was really phenomenal looking, to be honest with you. You might want to consider the same thing, because that way there'd be light coming in, but it also wouldn't allow potential someone to see what's inside there or something. So, but you'll provide a detail of those, I take it, ultimately. And if there's tenants that you think may want a different kind of door or garage door, maybe you want to throw in 2 or 3 that we can say, check, check, check. They can, pick from these. Yeah, yeah.
Just one quick, addition to the color, because you've done such an amazing job on this. When you just have that sea of white and gray, we don't notice the details anymore. You're adding color, we're going to really, all those details are washed away, they're lost. So you'll be augmenting the great work you've done if you add more color.
Has there been any consideration to the accordion door, the doors that fold on themselves and hidden away?
No.
Oh, the glass.
Was it investigated? I mean,
No,
did you
no.
check into it?
No, we haven't.
It might be a solution, because they're actually very nice.
Yeah, the glass accordion doors.
Well, they're
Those ones
actually,
that fold in.
they're actually
Yeah.
like crafts, they have different styles. I think Anderson has them now, where they just opposite
Blue-
lock, and they
Blue Point.
slide right to the wall.
Blue Point Restaurant down right on the water.
Yeah, maybe.
They have them.
Yeah.
Big glass thing,
Yep.
and they, all of a sudden, the whole thing's open.
I think it was Cafe Maya in Wappingers had it as a short window that opened up to air, so there was actually a water table below, so you could, like a car in the parking lot, couldn't drive into the building and cream somebody, so there was that, but it was a tall, because the building is like maybe 10-foot ceiling, so it's a 7-foot window that's on a 2.5-foot, water table. Yeah, exactly, yeah, and that might be an option too for some of the retail space, to do, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I make a quick comment? So, going back to the color and I didn't pick up on this until just now, and I don't know if it was intentional or not from the architects. I noticed when we're looking at the concept plan, in entirety, you have like I'll call it like the downtown or the main street is all different colors, and it kind of, to me, brings my eye right there, and it says, okay, this is like a mixed use place. It gives it a sense of place right there. And then to the north, you have that kind of, white and gray, but it's not, it almost like it makes different places. And I don't know if that was done intentionally, and if we start incorporating a bunch of different colors in that section and the section to the south, not saying that I'm opposed to it, but was there some sort of intent to put a focus on that area? Because looking at it, on a large scale, it stands out to me like that. I don't know if it was created that way.
Microphone. Sorry.
You're exactly right on the right track, because the Main Street, as we heard, was to look more organic. So that's why the variation of the articulation of the buildings themselves break down the massing, but also the colorations of the buildings themselves break down the buildings. Where then when you get away from Main Street, it makes a sense of place in those other areas. So when you have singular buildings or the smaller buildings, they look more uniform in terms of what they are. And then there's a thematic idea of the colors that go throughout the site itself, where then you have the Main Street, which is really organized chaos.
Yeah, just like from a user standpoint, right?
Yeah.
I pull in and I see all these different buildings. To me, that says, okay, it's a city block, it's Main Street. There we go. And if we do that to the buildings to the north, does that now create confusion throughout the site?
Yeah, again, it's also a sense of place. And there's a theory in architecture, it's called episodic architecture. And basically what it means is that when you look at something, a building or whatever, that's an episode. And the next episode is, to put everything together, you sort of have to recall. So in terms of the whole, I lost it. In case of the whole project, you want the recall, but you want episodic pieces of the architecture, and so you have, again, a sense of place where you are.
Yeah, just
But
something I
that's
picked
exactly
up
right.
on, and I, if we start, like I said, I'm not opposed to incorporating other colors or more color, but I just think that it might really lose that sense of place that we're getting with the downtown Main Street feel if the buildings to the south and the north mirror that or resemble that. Now everything, you don't get that
Right.
differentiation between
Yeah,
the
you almost get too homogeneous in terms of that, where the
Correct.
downtown, you're downtown. And that's what you want, that downtown to be, again, a vibrant place, and you want some connection with the colors and the articulation. So you're exactly right. So, but we can certainly look and see where we can place some colors and very sparingly, so that it gives some pop here and there. So I don't think that's an issue.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else have any other comments? Let me do some summing up. First, my comments. Great job. Great job. Architecture much improved. Again, I'm going to thank my colleagues, but also thanking the reception that, because I was in one of the meetings that was received by the applicants. Michael McCormick was like, "That's a great idea. That's great. Oh, no, we don't want to do that there. That's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. Let's incorporate." So every time they came back, it looked better and better to me. And at the last meeting we had, Rob had gone through with like a microscope, magnifying glass, to look at stuff, so that was great. I'm going to just weigh in on the color thing. I think that, I get what Chris is saying about a sense of place, but that's because that area has so much of that brick red color and brick. What I'd like to see, instead of the massive gray that Ann was referring to, is more of the tans and other colors or something else over there. Just don't use the red brick, because then you'll create that sense of space that this is not the downtown area.
Yeah.
But you can still not all have just grays and whites, because I really do think that the whole white and gray thing is going to be dated in about 10 years, because it's just become so popular. I mean, you want this to be more timeless. I also want to say that after looking at this with the architect, or the landscape architect yesterday, I got a really clear sense of, if you start from the south and walk through the downtown area and shop, and if you even go wander around through the residential, but then as you get further and further north, you get into the agrarian area. And that's what was promised originally with this was going to be an agri-hood. I now begin to see it, because when I saw the two demonstration farm areas and the barn that's going to be there, the buildings, and the fact that it gets less and less dense in that area, this will be a great way for someone to experience, say, the downtown village concept, but then within basically about 3 blocks away, be in the agrarian area, where you can actually touch and pick and feel. And that experiential part of this is what's been promised all along, and I think it's going to be a great sales thing for you as you move forward with getting residential projects going. That's really my only comments, because I think you did a fantastic job, like I said. I do want to say that we have to make the corrections about west elevation, showing the garage doors, like in building 900, all that. The City Winery Building and a few others are still undergoing review. We do need the sign manual because we have to see what the signs that we could approve or need to approve are going to look like. I personally think that you have way too much parking spaces myself, but I argued myself already out of that by saying, but you're going to have guests, people who are partying there. Because that will happen, and I need to recognize that. But I hate it to see overparked areas. I also think that in terms of landscaping, I mentioned this to Bonnie yesterday, I don't want to live someplace, so some of these you're going to face as a resident, parking lots. I think that she's going to incorporate landscaping to try to screen more of the parking areas around the outside from the residents. You will need to add, we talked about looking at adding the parking tables along the crosswalks on Main Street. I think that is a good idea. I think you did a fantastic job with the parking deck. I really did. Now that I'm getting that that's not just a fake tree with metal behind it, that and then having the wood, the verticals, I think it looks, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm looking forward to seeing a parking deck. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but that's the level of detail you've brought on this, why I think it's so great.
Well, what was interesting about that is the supplier of that, he couldn't quite grasp the fact we wanted a tree. He said, "Don't you want a bunch of bubbles?"
No, that's what we said we didn't want. That's why
a tree. Use the bubbles to make the tree.
I can't wait to see this. I'm serious. I think that what Tad's points are all the ones that need to be responded to, but most importantly to me, what I heard was to show them the building footprints to show the articulation that should have been probably in this plan, and then also the solid waste receptacles. I see that they're shown, but we don't have details on that yet, and that'll be needed to be added in through there, whatever kind of screening you're proposing. Other comments? You may want to look at Building 500 because I do have someone to my left who kept saying, ugh, when she first saw it, and she likes every other building a lot. I'm okay with the mansard roofs because that's in our design guidelines from Hart-Howerton. It does give it some of it a more historic feel, and whether you use the windows just to break up the massing or they actually become real, I think I'm okay with it because there's not going to be a usable space up there. And you heard me say about the pop for colors in the other areas. That's really about it. So when I say the other areas, I mean the residential buildings, not bringing that red in through there, but doing some other different kind of color in through there. I think we suggested like an aubergine or an eggplant that didn't get moved forward, but there's plenty of tans and creams you have in there that could help break up that gray area, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so again, to reiterate for anyone from the public who's watching, as well as my fellow board members, when we accept for sketch, basically what that's saying is that it has no seeker impacts. It's not even, it just happens to be unique to our code. But we're saying basically that the sketch they've laid out looks like it's going to be able to proceed to preliminary. And I don't think we're going to change the roads or anything like that along the way. So that's why we can accept for sketch. And I believe this is going to be introduced by Ms. Wasser.
Yes. So just a quick modification. When you get to the last paragraph about the courtesy recirculation, I've amended it on the copy that's going to the file. I've added the town board, since they have to
And
do
the
the
town
height
board?
variances, yeah.
Okay, can I just add that last?
Yep.
Okay. And that'll be. Okay. Great. Resolution to accept for sketch, Bellafield Phase 2. October 19th, 2022, resolution number 2022-27 and 2022-28. Whereas, and that's a number of paragraphs. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby, 1, classifies the subdivision plan as a major subdivision pursuant to section 96-5 of the subdivision law. 2, accepts the subdivision plan for sketch plan in accordance with section 96-12C of the subdivision law. 3, directs its secretary to provide a courtesy notice of the application to the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority, the Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health, the Department of Environmental Conservation, and the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and the Hyde Park Town Board.
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously with one person being absent. And now may I get a motion to set the public hearing for Bellafield Phase 2 Final Development Plan for November 16th.
Wait.
Contingent upon the applicant submitting a preliminary stormwater pollution prevention plan and building footprint with measurements by close of business on October 26, 2022.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't see that first. It's just need a motion.
Oh, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, got to get the building footprints in here and a preliminary SWIP by the 26th. And I just heard today, I believe, from Ms. Leibelt that the preliminary SWIP is planned for October 30th. Can you move that up a few days, Larry?
Or, I mean, you can change the date to the 30th. It has to be before the 2nd, so there's enough time to notice or not notice the public hearing.
28th?
Yeah, that would be Friday. If we
Friday, that's fine.
Let's amend the motion to, instead of being October 26th, October 28th. Make it a motion to amend that.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we got to do until the 28th now. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's only an hour and a half for, well, really an hour and 15. Look.
It started at
6:10.
6:00, yeah.
Yes, but this was a lot to get through.
It was about 2 hours, but
It's a lot to get through. And remember, there's some of us up here, actually, there's one of us up here who remembers when we used to meet until 11:30 or so, 12. Tad and Pete can recall that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this is an
I think 10
improvement.
was my latest.
At any rate.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, we have a series of waiver requests. The first is for an in-ground pool. This is located at 26 Curry Lane. The pool is not visible from the river. It is in a statewide area, scenic area of statewide significance. Ms. Moss has given some recommendation. And in addition, I would be the person most disturbed because this is next door to my house, and I have no objections. So I believe this will be introduced by Ms. Weiser.
Stephen Raphael, 26 Curry Lane, site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, October 19th, 2022, resolution number 22-50, whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Raphael regarding the specific request received October 3rd, 2022, and as identified in the building permit application dated September 26th, 2022.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next is a site plan waiver request for a generator located at 10 Cove Road in Rhinebeck, New York. This is for Ryan Dalton. We have a recommendation. This is in a statewide area of scenic significance, but this is not visible from really any place. And there's extensive vegetation between the home and Route 9. Any questions from anybody?
No.
Mr. Garcia, this is your resolution?
Ryan Dalton, 10 Cove Road, Rhinebeck, New York, 12572. Date October 19, 2022, resolution 2022-51. Whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Ryan Dalton for installation of a standby generator on the property associated with single-family home requiring a building permit. Whereas Section 108-94C2 allows the planning board to waive the site plan procedures for minor changes requiring a building permit. And whereas no other changes have been requested at this time, and whereas the applicant is required to return to the planning board for all other changes to the approved plans now. Therefore, be it resolved, the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for proposed addition as described in the building permit received by the Building Department September 14, 2022, and per the request to the Planning Board dated October 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next item is another site plan waiver. This is for a two-story rear addition. This is located at 10 Cronk Place. This is off 9G. This is actually on the west side of 9G. The zoning administrator has recommended a waiver. This does abut the NPS, the National Park Service's Farm Lane Trail, but there were no objections from any of the neighbors either. So I believe this will be introduced by Mr. Waters.
Yes, Travis Schiffko and Riston Benson, 10 Cronk Place, site plan waiver, October 19, 2022, resolution 2022-53. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made at the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Travis Schiffko and Riston Benson on October 11, 2022 for the property located at 10 Cronk Place, Hyde Park, New York. And whereas now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Shifco Benson regarding the specific request received October 11, 2022, and in the building permit application dated September 20th, 2022 for the project.
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Through with the waivers. Next item on the agenda is a set of public hearing. This is for KO Storage of Statsburg. This was formerly Hutchins Statsburg Storage. They would like a request to extend the deadlines for all the construction that we approved earlier, the expansion. And these are, as I said, these are the new owners. They'll also be coming back to us at some point, I believe, for solar panels along the roof. I believe they've mentioned that, so making a motion to set the public hearing for November 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And now making a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, and with enthusiasm.
It was a good meeting.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for all the work you put in.